Hello, I'm going to show you how I made this denim maxi skirt with pockets, and I made it in about 24 hours. And of course, I was inspired by pictures I saw on Pinterest. I wanted to play around with the placement of the pockets, and I wanted the skirt to look like this. I thought it would be fun to wear it in a casual way and dress it up. I also thought this style would be achievable within 24 hours, so I tried to make my skirt look more like this. But what I wasn't going for were skirts that would require denim fabric to make them, or that needed many alterations like in these examples. Okay, so I started off with a pair of light wash and dark wash jeans. I used the light wash jeans to make the majority of the skirt, and I used the darker jeans to add a triangle of fabric to the back of the skirt. For the first pair of jeans, I seam ripped them along these places. I avoided seam ripping the side of the jeans that touched my hips, and I was left with a lot of loose threads. And this was the aftermath of all of that seam ripping. I was left with a pair of jeans that were basically open, and I removed the pockets from the back. Next, I manipulated the front of the skirt using pins, and I wanted to see where I would add a slit and where like the top part would be sewn. I wanted a slit in the front and a triangle added to the back so that I could easily move and walk around in my skirt. So because the jeans were open now, I could easily move this area around, and I took pins and flattened out the area as much as possible. I also thought about what I would do about the thicker areas and the parts of the skirt that wouldn't have as many layers to the fabric. Here I'm picking up the skirt from underneath with one hand and using my other hand to pin certain parts down. This is what it looked like from the outside, and then I flipped the jeans inside out to see how I would sew everything on the inside. But first I removed the pins that I added as placeholders. I left a pin to kind of let myself know where I wanted the front and back to end before I added the slit and also the fabric piece to the back. I had to play around with the fabric as much as possible so that everything would look flat and normal instead of weird. I also used pins to help me shape the skirt to how I wanted it to look. I took note of when I wanted the skirt to flare out when I tried it on, and I thought that the area a little bit above my knees was the best place to start the slit. My plan was to sew everything by hand at first and then sew it with my sewing machine. Also keep in mind that I wanted a raw edge for the front part of the skirt. Once I was happy with how that looked after I pinned it, I started to sew by hand using a straight stitch all the way up to the point that reached the highest point, which is right here. And then I took the pins out. Now for the back, I sewed an X, and I was left with a lot of fabric in the back that I wanted to get rid of. I later cut it out, but in these clips, this is what it looked like before I cut all of this off. Now using the darker pair of jeans that I showed earlier, I cut out this shape, and to sew the entire back, I sewed following this shape, and I connected it to the triangle piece that I cut out earlier. I also didn't have time to record myself doing this, and then I started to sew it to one side of the triangle and then to the other side of the triangle. Just believe that I sewed everything. Now for the other back side, the seam looks like this because I top stitched from the front, not all the way at the very front, only from this area. I wanted to leave the very top waistband without a top stitch because it would have been too thick to sew all of that. So only along this area was where I top stitched, and I followed that all the way down to the triangle piece that I added earlier. And I used double thread to do this because I wanted it to last and I wanted to save time while sewing. To do this, I connected 2 spools of thread to my sewing machine. The way I did that was by inserting one thread from one colored thread that was white and then inserting thread from another color. Then I sewed the hem, and I tried to keep it as close as possible to the original hem. And from the inside, it didn't really look that clean or neat. But what mattered was that I connected everything all together and that the hem on the outside looked decent at least. Also keep in mind that I did not have denim thread when I made this. That's why I did the double thread trick earlier. So my seams have 3 threads in them basically because I left the bobbin like normal with 1 thread, but my needle had 2 threads in it. I also left enough fabric on the sides to go back in the future and do proper seams, like maybe flat felt seams. Now for the front side and the pockets, I followed the original seams that were on the pockets, but I didn't attach them to the back. I attached them to the sides. I made one a little higher than the other side And for the front, I just followed the original stitches that I could see, or the stitch lines left from what I seam ripped earlier is what I should say. The very start of the slit is being held by a stitch that I made look diagonal, and it is back stitched so that the slit was secured properly. And on the inside of the front, you can see that I followed the original seams as best as possible. Again, I was like rushing it, so if anything here looks a little messy, it's because I was rushing. I left this area raw because I didn't really think that mattered. This is what the pockets looked like after I tried to follow the original seams on the outside. I was having trouble with like the tension or whatever, but it's fine. The pockets were sewn. And now for the bottom of the hem, I only had to sew a little bit, and I had a little picnic because I was inspired by another picnic that I had a few days ago, or like the day before I sewed the hem, and I had fun. I actually finished everything on time because I wanted to wear this skirt on my birthday. So this is what the hem in the front looks like. Again, I left this part of the skirt just like raw, and this was the final result. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I tried it on. I wore it with red point-toe heels and a really cute top. Also, I'm not joking, I literally made this for my birthday. I was like rushing to get this skirt done, and I love how it turned out. It was kind of hard for me to get videos of me wearing it. I was like walking around having fun. I went on a little hike. I was wearing heels, so yeah, maybe like don't do that obviously, but I was bored. Okay, I wanted to have fun. Okay, it was my birthday. I was fine, by the way. I was just like tripping a little, but it's fine. I did not have time to do my makeup in the morning, but I did it later in the day. I made it. I'm not joking, I walked like 3 miles that day. Anyways, so this is what my skirt looked like. I thought it was really pretty, and the pockets were so useful, and I'm so glad that I met my deadline of trying to finish this before my birthday. Okay, now cue the music. In this clip, I blurred everything out because there were people in the background, and I don't like the idea of posting people without their idea or consent. So yeah, now I just have myself floating around the screen, which is really fun and cute. Oh, and by the way, I had like a really good birthday. I think I cried, but it wasn't like sad crying. I don't think. Honestly, my birthday was in October. I don't even know if I cried that day. maybe I'm just used to crying on on most of my birthdays, or oh my gosh, that sounds kind of sad. No, it's like sometimes you're like either like really happy, or sometimes you're like really sad on your birthday. I don't know. I remember I was happy. So just to recap, I sewed this triangle piece to the back, and I sewed pockets to the side, following the original seams that I had. I hemmed everything at the very end, and I made sure to top stitch with my sewing machine. After I removed the pockets, I could sew the entire back, but again, I avoided the very top of the waistband, and I sewed all the way down. For the front, I tried to follow the seams as best as possible, and I left raw edges at the very front of the skirt. I had like some things that were like kind of silly, like I was like looking forward to doing my makeup in the morning, but then I couldn't do it. But you know, it's like, it's fine. And yeah, I was like not trying to let personal things like make my birthday feel bad. But no, like it was a good birthday, you know? It was good. I'm pretty sure I was crying like happy tears because I love getting older, honestly. Like that is such a privilege. And yeah, I love that I got to wear my silly little skirt. I love how this skirt looks like an Among Us thingy character. I wish the hem was a little neater, but honestly, if I had more time, I could have easily made it a lot neater. Alright, hope you guys liked my skirt, and also I hope that this helps you make your own. If you like the video and you want to try out the skirt, please tag me in your recreations, and also subscribe. Sigma Riz Alpha Among Us Sus Imposter Skibbity.